Ja, altyd 'n pragtige lied van Jessica Reedy. En die lied se naam is Better. En daai lied sê so mooi, life, it could have left us better, but it do gets better. Jy is ingeskakel op DISA 95.9 FM en ja, hier verkondig ons Jesus Christus onbeskaamd vanaf die Oeverberg. Dis tyd vir God van wonders. Vandag het ek vir Gordon de Bruin op die lyn saam met my. Hallo Gordon, hoe gaan dit saam met jou en goed om vandag saam met jou ook te kan gesels?
Goeiedag. Goeiedag, met my gaat het baie goed, man. Met my gaat het eerlijk en goed. En soos jy kan weet, ek is Gordon de Bruin. A.k.a. the chosen one. Ek sê die kind van die Here. Baie goed.
Amen. Gordon, hier is 'n getuienisprogram, oor wat die Here in ons lewens kom doen het. Dan sê die woord van die Here, ons moet nooit vergeet die rots waar die Here ons uitgekap het en die pad waar langs ons gedraai het. Vertel ons 'n bietjie, wie is Gordon de Bruin en ook daai lewensverhaal van jou wat ook draaie en swaaie met jou geloop het.
Ja, goeiedag. Baie dankie vir die platform en vir die opportunity en vir al die listeners, vir al die mense wat luister. Nou, na die message. Soos ek kan net sê, ek kan net baie dankie sê vir God, vir die Vader en vir enige plek, vir al die mense wat vir my gehelp het oor die jare. Wat waar ek nou vandag is. Vir my kan ek sê die wonderwerk van die Here was baie goed. Ek praat seker van hom elke dag meer wat ek van myself op ander mense praat. Hoekom my klomp jare op groot geraak het op die Kaapse vlakte was hy baie goed. Dit was hy baie eerlik. Pa was 'n alkoholiek, criminal, broers, drug dealers, gangsters en julle die mekaar familie, so daai so hoe ek die lewe deur gegaan het oor die jare. Ja. En die tyd toe ek so 16 jaar oud gewees het en toe verloor ek my hele freedom as 'n teenager. And since the age of 12 years old, and I grew up all my life on the streets of Cape Flats, just being a gangster, just being a drug dealer, just being a robber and stealing all those type of things. Without me, and now there's always a hand of God over my life and so on. So it was never easy for me living that life and going through that pain and through that sorrows, having a biblical mother and all that type of things always taught me who God is and what is God doing in people's life while I was a little boy. You know what I mean? But all that dreams and that visions and that understanding, the devil stole it from me, when I was like 11 years old when they shot my brother dead, on the streets of Cape Flats, and it was painful, it was hurt, and it broke my whole heart and all that type of things. And at the age of 12 years old, I had no choice, to sell my soul to the devil and give it to him and all this type of things. And that's how I did live a life of crime, gangsterism, drug dealing and all. Yeah. Coming out of that lifestyle. And at the age of 16 years old, and so I went to prison, and I was sentenced to 10 years for murder. You know what I mean? And I was always a smart boy because that's how my mother was raising me, to be smart, to look to my dreams and to my visions, But if the devil make promises to you, and falling into that trap, I had no choice to fall into that trap. You know what I mean? And I did live a life which was dark, which was out of control and all this type of things, killing, robbing and all this type of things, on the streets. So for me, it was never easy growing on the streets of Cape Flats, but at the age of 16, when I ended up in prison, I had no choice, you know what I mean, being inside of there. Now you need to join another gang, you know what I mean, the prison gangsters, the 26, 27, 28, which is a different cycle, different circumstances. Everything is different in prison because it's not the same system. And develop into that lifestyle of prison, it was never easy for me, you know what I mean, at the age of 16 years old, and I've been through all that pain and that stress and that sorrows of a prison gangster, like we know what also noem het mos ouens, man, and it was never easy adapting to that life of a 28, because this is a type of lifestyle that was running in my family over and over and over all these life years and all these type of things, because my father dated back many years back into the 60s, 70s. So this curse or whatever we can call it, was always part of my life and all these type of things. And but there's always a God in heaven, and all these type of things. So going through that pain on the streets, as a kid was never easy. Now I'm in prison, locked up in prison. I'm also going through pain. I'm just adding more onto the pain and to the sorrows and all this type of things. And yeah, at the age of 16, around about before 21 and all this type of things, and I remember my mother came to prison still and visited me in jail when I in 21, and she always said, my son, I don't have a 21st key for you. You know what I mean? Because you know how it works in our culture as colored people, that's always like the gift of love and all that from a parent. And, she said, I don't have a 21st key, but I can only be your mother and all this type of things. And I believe that visit for me in prison was the best visit for me, just to see my age of 21, because many prisoners or criminals or gangsters or whatever we're going to call them, there are no on the streets of Cape Verde. Many of my friends, or the people that we call Bruce and Brassa, many of them is dead. They never even saw 21st. You know what I mean? And for me being 21st in prison, it was painful, it was sad, but I had no choice, for living that lifestyle, and for me, that was a time when God came and visited me, and while I was in prison, around about that time, and it's like, hey, if you believe in me, and if you call me your father and you believe that I'm God and all these type of things, I will promise you, you know what I mean, I will give you a 21st key. I can give you your key out of prison, and being in prison for the 10 years sentence for murder, it was never easy, and today, like, it's 2023 right now, and today I can see, the really God, the hand of God over my life and how God is working with me, you know what I mean? So because for me, being behind bars and going through all that pain and all those type of things in prison, there was a guy of 28 prison gangster with me, we were very close. They stabbed him to death in prison, and for me it was just like, I will be next in prison, they will kill me also, so I had to defend my life in prison and going through all that pain and that stuff, but God's hand was always over me, and the beauty out of all that pain and all this type of things that I've been through, I managed to finish matric in prison, that's the biggest miracle over my life.
Amen.
That's for me. Every day when I look at myself, I'm like, wow, that's the biggest miracle that could happen in my life while I was in prison. Finishing my matric, attending the rehabilitation programs in prison, but for me it was hard to understand what I was doing or what I was going through, and all these type of things, doing all those good things, you know what I mean? Because I wasn't quite sure, but the hand of God was always directing me through it, and finishing my matric and through all those pains. That could put a smile on my mother's face, that could make my mother happy and all this type of things, but when I came out of prison in 2012, you know what I mean, because I went in 2004, I came around, when I was 16, I came out 2012, and so for me, that was never easy, you know what I mean, and through all that pain and everything, I came out of 2012, I'm falling back into the trap of the devil, of gangsterism and drugs. And so I just started to sell drugs again, and I started to destroy the children's lives, because I didn't care, because for me it was just like, this is the only life that I know, because I have a sister that is a drug dealer. I have a baby brother that is now a drug dealer, My brother was been killed in this life of drug dealing, and I did selling drugs and do all these things since I've been 12 years old. So this is my life. This is the only way I can eat, this is the only way I can look after myself and feed myself, back in 2012, because I grew up in poverty and unemployment as a kid. I remember those days when my mother told me, there's no food on the table and there's no food to go to bed or go to school. For me, that was all pain that grew up in me since I've been a kid, and 2012 for me, while I was out of my 10 years prison, for me, it was not about me. I'm a changed man. I managed to finish matric and all this type of things in prison. For me, it's like, no, I need to survive, I need to survive on the streets of Cape Verde, and selling this drugs again and doing all the wrong things was just for me. I don't care if I die and all this type of things, because it's 2012. I come out of prison. I want to eat. I want to survive. I want to live a better life, because people is making promises. People say that if you change your life, you will get a job and all this type of, it was hard for me to listen to all these things people is telling me, you know what I mean? And the hand of God was always over me, you know what I mean? And there were so many times he came and visited me, and it's like, hey, walk away from this criminal life, this gangster life, and this all, this drug thing, because I had money when I came out. For me, that was a job, that was something to eat, you know what I mean? So after it, I was like, I will not listen to these voices of God and all these type of things. I'm gonna do my thing. But for me, my whole life, in 2015, that was my most turning point I could take, you know what I mean? Because I ended up a couple of times back in 2015, you know what I mean? And at least I even ended up in rehab, back in 2014 in Camp Joy in Strandfontein. I never went to rehab because I was on drugs, and so I never smoked drugs before and all this type of things. But we all need help. You know what I mean? And my bail conditions, I had this criminal case, cases that will send me back to prison for a couple of many years again. You know what I mean? And that's just where I heard the voice of God again in prison. It's like, hey, I can get you out of this place. I can help you and all this type of things. But you gotta confess. You gotta make these gangsters or criminals inside of Portsmouth prison believe.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That you're walking away. And I've been on maximum prison again. And that type of. And on that time, I confess, I told my friend that is today, as we're speaking right now, we're still in prison. He's a general. He's a big gangster. We grew up since 3 years old. And I had to confess to him, and I had to talk to him like, hey, I'm done with this life. I don't want this life anymore. I'm walking away. If I'm going home right now, I will definitely pack my bags and leave the streets. I will leave drug dealing, crime, and all these type of things, because I had it all. I had the guns, I had the drugs, I had women, I had everything, and for many of them, while I was in prison doing that confession, it was unbelievable for them to believe in what I was saying.
Amen.
In 2005, and in that same time, God opened up the door for me in court, and I went home, and I was like, I will definitely pack my bags and leave and leave the streets. I went to my sister, I went to my brother, I went to big drug dealers, big gangsters, and all this type that's running the underworld. I told them, guys, I'm done. I'm walking away. And that 2005, that was my turning point of walking away. And I went back to rehab. I went back to Pastor Craven Engel, and I'm like, hey, give me just another chance. At your rehab. You know what I mean? And while I was in rehab, I could discover the gifts and talents God had planted in my heart so many times. In rehab, I've discovered, wow, I can be an actor, I can be a motivational speaker, I can be a teacher, I can be a songwriter, and all these types of things. I discovered all these types of things when I was in rehab. And in that same year, God blessed me of going back to college as well, and I went to R labs. They're working or do a lot of work in the community, and I could see the hand of God is opening up the doors for me. And while I was with R labs and I studied and I just believed that I can become successful, I can get out of this life of cakelets, I can get out of this ghettos or whatever, And so it was going, you know what I mean? And I was just developing myself and more developing myself, and started to go on radios, TVs. I started to become a motivational speaking, started to become an actor, you know what I mean? And I could see the hand of God moving with me. In 2016, I started with Media Village, did film and television and all this type of things. I did a theater so-called Don't Miss Your Turning Point, which is very powerful, so that I did in a couple of theaters, you know what I mean? And I could see the success and how God is building the success and the goodness of Him through me, of where I come from, because I was like, who will give all these things to me? And I was like, wow, look at all this. And as I was going, and so things was going, and I started to travel, I started to go places, and right now, as we speak, I'm at one of the world's global biblical college that they call YWAM, Youth with a Mission, and just being like right now, I entered that place 2016. I managed to study the full Bible School of Biblical Studies. I did my DTS. I did titles. I've studied so much, I've even studied business, and I was like, wow, where does all this come from? But all I could be is just be humble and just be patient, and for all this type of things. And so now, as we're doing, even now, we're doing a theater so-called Mama Cry, you know what I mean? I was like, where does all this dreams and visions come from, and God bless me with dreams and visions. And as we're speaking right now, because tomorrow I will be back on the stage performing, on the theater stages of Mama Cry. And I was like, for me, just to go through that story of Mama Cry, I could see, wow, this is what my mother had been through, because I'm speaking. The writer of the Dennis, he wrote that story without even knowing me. We always have to talk. I'm like, how did you know me? And just listening to that story, Mama Cry, I was like, my character in it, it's me who I really was before my mother went into a wheelchair, because my mother was a strong lady and she went into a wheelchair before she could pass away. And it was very painful for me, just to focus on my dreams and my vision right now as we speak. So for me right now, being on a radio, DISA, which it's really a privilege, Nobody could make this possible for me, except God, and as I can say, this. I did study last year as well, community development with Wow Musenberg, you know what I mean? And such a big doors have opened for me as well. And today I'm working in prisons, doing my internship, you know what I mean? I'm doing my internship with Hope Prison Ministry. That's such a gift to me, just to be back I've prayed my way out of prison. I went on my knees and I talked to God, please. And I went places. I even went as far as Uganda. I prayed all around prison, and I'm like, I'm not going back to prison. And I do community work so much in Cape Flats, you know what I mean? Investing in the community, investing in the youth, investing in the dreams and the visions, because many kids is looking up to me, for now, it's a different person, and because it's so hard for many of them to understand in what they were seeing now. Yesterday, I was a drug dealer, gangster, murderer, and all that. Look at me today on the streets of Cape Flats. I'm walking with a suit and tie and all this type of things, and for them, it was just such a blessing. And even doing my internship with Hope Prison Ministry right now in prisons, you know what I mean? It's just really a privilege, just to go back into these places, just look at these criminals and always talk to them and motivate them and say, hey, I've been here, but look at the hand of God, look what this God is doing. I even went back to the prison in Drakenstein prison, where I did my 10 years, where I was sentenced, and the pastor that I used to rebuke, the pastor that I said there's no God, God is not real, and all this type of things, that is the pastor that I could give a hug, that's a pastor that I could talk to and only say, yeah, you did put all this gray hair on my head, So it was really an awesome, just to go back to that pastor,
Amen.
And just to talk to him and say, wow, for all your preaching and your talking and your motivation you did in this prison, you know what I mean? For me, I really appreciate it, and it was a nice meeting I had with him, hopefully soon I will be more at that side, you know what I mean? So for me, what I'm doing now, just to do community development, because I thank God that I did study community development with WHM, just to invest in the community and just to give back to society in Cape Flats and wherever where God is taking me, you know what I mean? Coming to your side, wherever there's places that I can reach out to, just to make the youth to believe that there is a God and there is success and there is visions and dream. You know what I mean? So for me, having this opportunity right now with you on the phone, remember, here's a big city called Cape Town. I'm doing it in the office of a big city in Cape Town, the CBD. You know how beautiful the city is. As I look out, I look to the mountain. I see Table Mountain even, and I'm like, wow, look where God has brought me. You know what I mean? So for me, that is actually really a blessing, just to be in the city of CBD, just to be in this type of authority places. It always reminds me of the words of my mother where she used to tell me when I was a kid. I remember if I can send you to church, then and talk to God. Remember, you can talk to anyone in the world. Remember, if I can send you to school to go and talk to your teachers, you can talk to anyone in the world. And for me, that prophecy or words or whatever my mother said over my life, it's a reality, just to be in this big city, just to walk up and down and meet with people, authorities, people, talk to them, and sometimes I ask myself, is this really true? Is this really you, God, doing all these things for me, Being on a plane, traveling, had a visa, I got even a job, I got so much success behind my name, you know what I mean? For me, I believe it's not always about the money and the power and all this, because I had the money, I had the power, I had all these things on the streets of Cape Flats, but I gave it all up, I just sacrificed it just to walk with God, and for me, just to be surrounded with all these people from the globe. I mean, I'm with WHM Musenberg, and that's a global university, people from all around the world, from all nations. Just for me to be there every day, I can say to myself, I really appreciate the hand of God and for what you're doing to me, even being in the city right now, as we're doing this interview as I'm doing it with you on DISA Radio, I'm enjoying enjoyed it so much just to look out of this window and looking at Table Mountains, all this building. I'm like, wow, I come from the ghettos, I come from the gutters, I come from the streets, I come from a life of poverty and unemployment. How did I get it right now to just to be in the office and doing this interview with you, you know, and talking to the people, to the listeners, wherever they listen to, all around the world, local, international, you know, for me, that's actually the greatest gift of all, you know. And for me, focusing on my dreams and vision right now, you know, I really appreciate that, you know, because I'm working on Mama Cry. I mean, that's a story for all the mothers out there, because I know the pain and the tears of my mother before she died. I was there. I saw how much she had prayed on her knees and all this type of things. But I was still the unbeliever, like, yeah, there's no God in heaven. Why? Because all the material things I had in the underworld made me believe there's not a God, there's nothing in all this. But she was always praying. She didn't pray for me not to have success in life. She prayed for me to live the type of lifestyle that I'm living, you know, the wicked way that I'm doing, the crimes, the wrong things, you know. And so for me, that really appreciate all her praise it did for me over the years, you know. And for me, just to stand here right now in the city, you know, and look over the city and look at everything, I can see the hand of God and what He's doing for me, and focusing on the play Mama Kara, you know. I mean, now, as we talk, there's so many women out there going through pain, women that is listening right now going through pain, going through agony, all this type of sorrows, you know. And for me, walking on the streets of Cape Flats, you know, like almost every day, you know, and walking on the streets, and I'm like, look at the women, look at the pain, and, you know, the hurt that they are going through in their heart, you know. And for me, that's motivation, you know, to believe in my dreams, to believe in this theater show that I'm doing now, because tomorrow we're starting with it, you know. And soon in July, during this whole year, until I don't know when God will make things just to stop or what's going. But I believe where God is, you know, nothing is over. You know what I mean?
Yes, Gordon, onze tyd het nou alweer amper uitgehardloop. Daar is nou nog net so 2 minute oor. Ek wil net hê, wat kan jy vir iemand sê wat vandag ingeskakel is? Ons het net 2 minute oor, want daar moet nog nuus ook uitgaan. Wat kan jy vir iemand sê wat vandag sit en luister na jou wat in gangsterism verval het?
Ik kan maar nog niet zeggen, especially voor de youth, you know, because mijn hart gaat bij je uit voor die jongelingen, om voor hulle te zien hoe hulle drugs rook en drugs allerlei, en die wat wel drug dealers is, you know, for me, for them that wants to be drug dealers, I'm telling you, you know what I mean, there's no life in it, it's a pain, you just destroy other families, where you can build up yourself, you know, because for me, that's just from the devil, because that's what the devil has promised God, wherever you're gonna build, I'm gonna destroy, and how many people's life I did destroy. So for me to send word out to the youth, to the youngsters, you know what I mean? There is jobs, there is opportunities, there is help. Look at me where I'm in the world right now, you know what I mean? Because I believe that drugs or that crimes or that violence, you know, because that's everybody, every young youth, as they look at them, and I always talk to them, they just want to be drug dealers because it's easy money, easy thing, but there's blood on it. You have to take people's lives for it. You have to sacrifice, you have to give up your future, you must go to jail and all this, and that is not good things to do, you know. So for me, just to be in Portsmouth prison, you know, and just to look at these youngsters and teenagers, I always see myself sitting on the very same chairs, and I can always say to them, there's a God in heaven that can get them out of there. And for those, if I walk on the streets of Cape Flats, you know, I always talk to them and say, guys, this thing of drug dealing, of robbing and stealing is not going to bring you anywhere. All you can do, you can get a job. There is help, there's me, there's people that can help you. There's so many community development work that is happening, organizations. There is help out there for us youth, for us young, that dream they want to be drug dealers or gangsters or criminal, because there's no future in it. You know, that's the only good one. And the most important thing is for them just to stay on school. You know what I mean? If they can stay in school, definitely it will work for them, because I'm back, I'm still in school. I love education.
Jammer om te plaas, ons tyd het uitgehardloop, is 1 uur. Kan mense vir jou kontak, waar kan mense jou in die hande kry? Want is 1 uur en ons tyd het nou uitgehardloop. Kan hulle jou kontak?
Vir my kan hulle kontak op Facebook, TCO World Joseph, daar is waar jy wil. Basically, daar waar jy my gaat kry, TCO World Joseph. As jy op daar is, dan kry jy my oral. Sy search net TCO Joseph, weer as jy res history. En kom as ek nou my, daar is actually the platform where the people can get me most. TCO Joseph.
Okay. Thank you very much. Baie dankie, Gordon, vir jou getuienis. Mag die Here jou ryklik seën.
Dankie.
Baie dankie. Bye-bye.